after over a year of requests, today I'm going to show you my full Blu-ray collection. So let's talk about it. Hi, if you're new here, my name is SeanChandler, and I started this channel essentially because I was driving everyone around me crazy talking about movies way too much. If you can relate, you're probably in the right place, and consider clicking that subscribe button. Before I get started, this video is brought to you by my supporters over on Patreon. My Patreon page is a place where you can financially support my channel, and in return, you gain access to a weekly Q&A with me. Sometimes we do live Google Hangouts where you can actually video chat with me, and each week this year, I'm going to be putting up a video over there where I rank every single movie, new and old, that I saw the previous week. So if you enjoy my channel, want a little bit more access to me and some exclusive content, please consider supporting the channel over there. With all that said, let's get started. First up, we've got 300. I actually bought this one for only $3 used at a bookstore. Just a great macho movie about guys killing other guys. Very simple plot. I love this one that I sometimes will put on just to motivate me to go hit the gym. Next up, we've got 47 Meters Down, a dumb shark movie, but I mean, it hits all the right buttons. If you like dumb shark movies, this is one that's easy to watch with slightly better acting than some of the dumb shark movies out there. My wife loves dumb shark movies, which will be a recurring theme probably in some of the different things we talk about here. Next up, we've got 500 Days of Summer. So this is the movie that Mark Webb did before the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and I just think that he's pretty great with these kind of relationships that feel real, feel organic, and with leads that have great chemistry, because that's what worked best about his Amazing Spider-Man movies, which we'll get to in about 10 seconds. But that's what I loved about this movie, is that it felt like a real relationship. You could relate to kind of the moments. You liked everyone involved with it. And so I hope he gets back to doing more stuff kind of like this. Then we've got About Time, another rom-com-ish type movie, but not a typical rom-com. This one dealing with time travel and with the delightful Rachel McAdams. So I know a lot of people have loved this one more than I did. I had fun with it. I'm just not gaga for it the way that I know some people have been, but I love everything with Rachel McAdams in it, so I of course love this movie too. Next up, we do have another Mark Webb film, The Amazing Spider-Man. As I've said many times before, I found these movies to be well, this one is specifically to be kind of like the most mediocre Spider-Man movie. I don't think it's poorly done at all. It's just doesn't bring all that much of anything new and exciting to the franchise. It kind of doesn't have enough fun for Spider-Man, but I love the interactions between Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield. I just think they have fantastic chemistry, and Mark Webb, as I just said before, is very good with that type of thing. Related to The Amazing Spider-Man is The Amazing Spider-Man 2, a movie that I don't think is, there's too many plot lines, the tone's all over the place, there's goofy characters, but the two lead characters, as well as the Dane DeHaan characters' interactions with Peter Parker, I think there's a lot of great human elements to it. It just doesn't jive well with these very campy versions of Electro and things like that. So this was a real disappointment. Fun story though, when I bought this one, which was last month, I wanted to get the cheapest version where I would get the Blu-ray, and apparently if you buy the Blu-ray 3D edition, it was like $5 cheaper on Amazon, because people are like, Blu-ray 3D, I don't have a 3D player, so they didn't want to buy this version of it. But it still has the Blu-ray, the digital to DVD, so I got a free Blu-ray 3D that I don't need because I don't have a 3D TV or anything like that, but I did save $5 in the process. Next up, we have got American Assassin. I was about to say American Sniper because I always get the title of those two confused, but we have American Assassin. I thought this one was a very solid action spy thriller type movie. It's not a great spy thriller action movie, but a solid one, and especially because you've got Michael Keaton and he just kind of knocks it out of the park. There's a couple scenes in it, in particular a torture scene that he just gets kind of chew up the scenery and chew up something else in the scene as well. So I just thought that one was nice. There's not a ton of 4Ks in my collection because I don't have a 4K TV or a 4K player, but occasionally I've found them cheap enough that I've tried to future-proof my collection by picking up the 4K editions of some of them, and that was one that I picked up on Black Friday because it was very cheap. Next one, probably one that you And wait to see Ant-Man. I had a ton of fun with this one. It's just a nice, light-hearted adventure that wasn't pretentious. It wasn't trying to up the ante or anything like that. It was just a heist movie, a nice change of pace. I loved seeing Michael Keaton in the franchise, and then Paul Rudd as well. I've enjoyed Paul Rudd's work, and so put it all together. A movie that feels very Marvel, but also has its own distinct flavor. And of course, the Michael Pena stuff is fantastic as well. Next up, we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, a follow-up that I thought did everything I wanted it to do and had a very tough task in coming right after Avengers Infinity War, in which case, stakes through the roof, anticipation for Marvel stuff through the roof, and it worked for me. It's not one of the great Marvel movies, but it's not trying to be. And I think it's good to have Marvel movies that are just right there in the middle. That's perfectly fine. Not everything can be swinging for the fences. And the two Ant movies, they're trying to be a single. They're trying to be a double. And they are. They did exactly what they were going for, at least for me. Next up, we have got the A-Team. I've never really liked this one. I grew up watching the original A-Team, and I don't hate it or anything. It's not like anything like that. But I watched it back 7 years ago and felt underwhelmed. It just didn't. The pieces didn't fit together. I didn't connect with the story, and I thought I would because I love Liam Neeson, love Bradley Cooper, watched the original show back in the day, and love action movies. And then rewatched it about a year ago when I bought this, and it just doesn't pull me in the way I think it should, unfortunately. Next up, we have got The Avengers. Of course, the classic Marvel movie where I really feel this is the one where the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of came together as this big, gigantic cultural event, because you'd had a hit movie in Iron Man, and then all of them had done all right, but this was the one where it was like just a massive hit that everyone was talking about, everyone was going to see multiple times, and it kind of changed the game a little bit for what we thought about when we thought about the MCU and Marvel movies. Next up, of course, I need to stop saying next up. Next in line is Avengers Age of Ultron, a good enough follow-up. There's a few too many plot lines going on, and so unfortunately it doesn't fully capture the magic, I don't think, but it's got the one-liners, it's got the great action sequences, it has, in certain ways, more emotion to it. It certainly has a far more complicated plot line, which is probably one of the issues I have with it. But, if they could have trimmed it down and not put so many plot lines, it could have been right up there with the original. As is, it's still a very enjoyable film. And then we have Avengers Infinity War, the movie that I put as my #1 film of last year, and a movie that I put at the top of my last couple MCU rankings. And, for me, it's one of those movies that it's just crazy that it exists, that we've made it to a point in history where movies like this get made, where you have this many stars, this many heroes. It's in space, it's on Earth, it's massive in scale in every sense of the imagination, and then it ends, well, I'm not going to tell you how it ends, in case you're one of the 5 people on planet Earth that haven't watched it yet. But just one of these universe-shattering conclusions that everyone has been talking about. So I just loved what they did with this one, and I'm very excited to see the follow-up in late April. Next up, we've got this very cool box set right here, the Alien Quadrilogy. Right, or Alien Anthology, as this one is called. And so, got full booklet stuff in here. Just very cool design on everything. As for the Alien movies themselves, the first one is a very well-made Ridley Scott film, kind of more of a slow burn. And the second one is one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. If there's 2 types of people in the world, there are alien people and there are aliens people. I am certainly an Aliens person. I love the work of James Cameron and what he's been able to do with several franchises that we'll talk about throughout this video. And then you've also got Alien 3, the movie I hate the most on planet Earth. It's not the worst made movie. It's the movie I just hate the most because I just hate the concept of it. And then you've got Alien Resurrection, which was written by Joss Whedon, who directed 2 of these Avengers movies that we just talked about. But what makes this so cool is the special features, the documentaries about each of the movies are fantastic. Even the movies that aren't great, the special features about Alien 3 are amazing and telling you the stories of how the movie got made, why it got made, how they ended up on this prison planet. Very cool stuff. I highly recommend. We've also got Alien Covenant, a movie that I've not been crazy about. So I only saw it the one time in the theater, and it was a movie that I left it. I was like, okay, that was pretty cool. I liked that. And then as I thought about it more, I liked it less and less and less. When it's an Alien prequel, I'm a big fan of this movie. The first 45 minutes, the last 20 minutes, pretty cool. When it's a Prometheus sequel, I just didn't like it. It just digging down deeper into the stuff that I enjoyed the least about Prometheus, and that's what this movie did. It kind of killed itself for me. Then we've got a double feature of the Alien vs. Predator movies. And the first Alien vs. Predator, I think, is overly criticized. I think people hate it because it was PG-13 when it came out, wasn't what they were expecting. On its own terms, take away expectations, I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it works just fine as kind of a fan fiction on film. It's not fantastic. It's not on the level of Alien, Aliens, Predator, not at all. But on its own terms, I think that it's an enjoyable film. The second one, I think, is kind of a disaster. It should have been a lot of fun as like aliens running through a town with predators in there too. That should have been amazing, but it's not, because they made the movie so dark, had such terrible characters, and put in some really off-putting stuff in there too. So it just kind of shot themselves in the foot on that one. Armageddon. I've always loved this movie. It's not great cinema, but when I talk about Taco Bell movies from time to time, fast food entertainment films, ones that are easy to consume, that you don't want to know too much about what's in there, you know it's not good for you, you know it's not great, but it's very enjoyable. That's this one for me. And from when I saw it back in the theater in '98 up until last summer when I last watched it, this is a movie that it's just so dumb and so fun. And it does it stupid with so much energy that I have a lot of fun with it. Then we got one, Baby Driver, from Edgar Wright, that is just one of the coolest and smartest edited, constructed action heist driver type movies that we've gotten ever. Just because he integrated into it all the pieces, which he had this idea about music and this guy with hearing and something in his ear, so he's always listening to music, and he integrated that throughout the plot, the editing, the direction, and everything, and it works. And it wrote a bunch of cool characters and got a bunch of cool actors to play the characters, so you get a very cool movie when you do all of that. We got Bad Boys 1 and 2, the double. Actually, no, that's not true. This is just Bad Boys. I thought I had a double feature this one. No, this is just the original Bad Boys. I guess I don't have the original, or I don't have Bad Boys 2 apparently. So, Bad Boys, another Michael Bay film, and a solid, enjoyable action film with obviously a couple of leads in there that are fun to watch. The girl in it is Téa Leoni, and so I enjoy her in most things that she's in as well. So that's a nice little touch in there. Not a classic for me, but a fun movie to put on once a year, once every couple years. I can have fun with this one. And then final one for this shelf right here is going to be Bad Santa. Bad Santa is an experience to watch this movie. I've only seen it once, and it made me laugh. It also made me feel guilty and evil at the same time, because Bad Santa, he's actually a pretty bad guy in this one. And so there's tons of antics in it. Not recommended for anyone that is not a grown-up. Then we've got Back to the Future, the trilogy, some of my favorite movies of all time. All three of them are a ton of fun for me. The second two tie together really nicely. The first one is just a great standalone time travel story. One of these movies that I understand why people don't want them to remake it, because it captured something so well. It was cast so well that you just can't imagine anyone else playing these characters. But I think the central concept of it, of a modern day high schooler going back to when their parents were in high school, before, for us, it would be before the internet and everything like that, or in his case, before computers, before portable music, all that fun stuff. That's a concept that translates to different time periods and can be remade and retold in new and fresh ways. So I'd actually be for a remake of Back to the Future on those guys. I don't remake the script, but take a 2020 high schooler, take them back to 1990, before the internet, cell phones, all that fun stuff, before woke culture. That could be a ton of fun. Sorry, we're talking about imaginary movies instead of these ones that are right here in front of me. Next up, we've got the original Batman anthology of films. So that era from 1989 to 1997, these were the movies I grew up with. While I was in grade school, these were the comic book movies that were coming out that were the big hit, iconic films that kind of shaped my life. In fact, I collected all of the cards from Batman, Batman Returns, and I still have them, obviously, to this day. If you want to see what this looks like, what my handwriting looked like 30 years ago, still have it to this day, and I keep it in my office right over there. But so, yeah, the first one, such an important classic movie in my life. It's one of the first big event films I remember seeing. It's the first one I collected stuff for. Batman Returns was one of those movies that I remember waiting for, and then went to go see it with my mom, and she's like, should I let you see this very dark movie? I was actually really into Batman Forever when it first came out. I didn't mind the change of tone or anything. I didn't even pick up on it really. Like, I knew things were different. I didn't really know things were different because I was pretty dumb up until about 10 minutes ago when I started recording this video. And then when Batman and Robin came out, that was one of the first movies I can remember watching in the theater and being like, well, this is awful. This is awful. This is a terrible movie. By high school, I'd finally got my brain together to understand good and bad cinema. Next up, we've got Nolan's Batman trilogy. I clump my movies together based off of franchises most of the time. So obviously, you've got The Dark Knight right next to the Batman movies. That's how I would do it. But of course, these are just classic films that were very important to the genre. And of course, Nolan's career in becoming this icon of the last 20 years started with this. Obviously, Memento came before that, but when he became this mainstream person that everybody knew who he was and respected him, where that happened. And this is a very cool set here because you got a nice booklet inside of it and other things. So and I enjoy all three of them. The Dark Knight Rises, I think, is the weakest of them by a good bit, and it seemed like he was trying to do a few too many things and picked a weird direction. Like, of all the things you could do with a Batman trilogy, that you have Batman take 7 years off because he's whining over or moping over his girlfriend or something. That's a bit of an odd choice to do with Batman, but I still like the movie overall. Next up, we've got Batman v Superman, a movie that I have repeatedly defended. I get why, to some extent, I get why people don't like it. I don't get why people hate it. The level to which people feel betrayed, hurt, so many other things. I don't get all of that. And I just think there's a lot of sequences in it that are very cool, that whether you're talking about the Batman v Superman fight, people wanted to be longer, they wanted multiple, but what's there I think is pretty cool. The warehouse fight, very cool. I think the fight at the end with Doomsday, I think it's a cool fight sequence. So I've never fully understood some of the criticisms of it. I think the Ultimate Edition makes a lot more sense as a movie, as the plot. It fills into the gaps when they had to cut it down, cut 30 minutes out of it to put it in the theater so it wasn't 3 hours long. The movie doesn't make a lot of sense because they cut things that a little bit too much, but so that's my take on that one. Next up, Black Panther. As of the day that I'm filming this, they announced that Black Panther is nominated for Best Picture, which it is the first superhero movie ever nominated for Best Picture. Some people think it's The Dark Knight, but The Dark Knight was not nominated for Best Picture. That was when they only had 5 nominations, and I believe that's one of the movies that kind of pushed them to add the extra films into the mix, as I recall. But Black Panther, I thought was a very good movie. A different type of Marvel movie that tried to explore more ideas, have a little bit more depth to it, have more of a moral dilemma inside of the main plot line where our character could be changed by the villain while still needing to stop him at the same time. So a movie that very cool, and I'm glad that it exists. Next up, we have the original Blade Runner. I've never been a Blade Runner fan. Never been one that's resonated with me. I've watched it. I probably watch it every decade is basically what happened. So I saw it back in the 90s the first time. Then I saw it in like 2005. Then I watched it right before Blade Runner 2049 came out. And I've watched several different editions of it, some because there's many different versions. This is the final cut of the film. And none of them have worked for me. They're too weird at certain points in time, too poetic in some of the dialogue that it doesn't resonate with me quite right. And there's interesting ideas. It's not like I can kind of understand where some people are in love with it. I'm just not there. Next up, we have got Blade Runner 2049, a sequel that I think is better than the original because it takes that first film and packages it better. Takes the ideas and I think communicates them better, filters out some of the weird, overly poetic type things, and just makes for a movie that explores its ideas in a manner that's a lot more palatable for someone like me that's kind of dumb. And then we've got this very cool little 3-movie set of the Blomkamp films, and I have not seen any of them yet. I haven't seen District 9 yet, Chappie, or Elysium. The way the universe worked out, just haven't watched them. And so I bought this because it was only $10 at Best Buy, and it's digital, and it's got this booklet thing and everything. So it's a very cool package deal. There are 3 movies I want to see because people have had many strong opinions on Blomkamp, and I just haven't watched it yet, unfortunately. So cool packaging. Can't say if the movie's cool or not. Then we got this twofer from Jean-Claude Van Damme, 2 of his best. I sorted it based off the first one on there, Bloodsport. Fun fact, Bloodsport was the first R-rated movie that I ever saw as a child. When I was 7 years old at a friend's house, we watched Bloodsport. Freaked me out when it showed an exposed bone from someone getting kicked. And then I saw Time Cop in the theater. It wasn't the first rated R movie I saw in the theater, but it was one that I did see in the theater. Another classic Van Damme film. A very nice little twofer there. Brave. I've seen it 2-3 times with my kids. I've never cared much for this one. It feels like DreamWorks or Illumination trying to do Disney. But it's Pixar, so it's an odd film because it doesn't feel like a Pixar film. It feels like a Disney film, but it doesn't feel like a Disney film. It feels like someone else trying to do a Disney film. And whether you're talking about the twists in it, it's just a movie that never fully came together for me. Then we got Bridesmaids. I love this movie. I always get a kick out of this one. A ton of fun characters, ton of quotable one-liners. Whether you're talking about the main bridesmaids in it, they're fun. The bantering, the mean girl stuff, or like Chris O'Dowd is the cop that keeps getting shunned and mistreated by Kirsten Wiig, or they're talking about John Hamm as just a total douchebag in it. Just a fun movie that always makes me laugh. I enjoy this movie a lot more than my wife does, which is kind of a funny little thing. Then we've got Captain America, the First Avenger, one of the Phase 1 MCU films. And for me, I think the first hour of this film is one of the best hours in the MCU. When it's his origin story and he's just this guy that wants to do the right thing and doing all these tests, I just love it. And then him with all the different Captain America suits and when he's on the promotion tour and everything, love it. Then he goes on this rescue mission, it's great. And then once he becomes Captain America and he's fighting World War II, it goes into montage mode and it loses me a good bit, unfortunately. Then we've got Captain America, the Winter Soldier, a movie that so many people have it top 10 best comic book movies of all time, top 5 comic book movies of all time, top 3 best MCU films. I've always really enjoyed this film. I've never been on the overhyped train for this movie. It's unique, it's different, the political thriller stuff's all very intriguing. I've just never been on the camp that the best thing ever. I've never fully even understood where some of that's coming from, actually. But one I have understood the hype for, Captain America Civil War. Once again, you get a ton of characters together, and at the core of it, you have an actual moral dilemma. You have competing value sets from between our 2 characters who, if you look at their experiences in the movies that they have been in the past and bring them together of the worldviews that they would have from those experiences, you understand why they're on these 2 different sides, where one guy would be like, I kind of created Ultron. Maybe I do need oversight from the government. And the other guy's like, I've seen evil governments. I don't want anything that can lead to tyrants. So I'm not crazy about this plan. So another one that I absolutely love. Then last one of this section is Captain Underpants. I'm only kind of seeing this movie, so I don't have a lot of thoughts on it. It's one of those movies that I keep hearing great things about. It's been on in the background when I've been in the room. I've never fully engaged, sat down and watched it. I need to do that. Moving into our next box, we have Casino Royale, a movie I've actually owned 10 copies of over the years. This one happens to be a used copy from a bookstore. This is my favorite Bond film on many different levels. Just the parkour intro is great. The action thread is great. Daniel Craig brings just a nice modern vibe to things that I've enjoyed. And they find a way to make card playing thrilling and exciting, which is quite a feat inside of a Bond film and an action film. So this one for me is the best Bond film. Then we've got Cars. I've never been crazy about the Cars movie. It came out when I was, 25 years old or something like that. So I didn't see it in the theater. I didn't really watch the movie until I had kids. And so of the Pixar movies, it's not one that's resonated with me the way other films have. Then we've got The Hunger Games, Catching Fire. This is my favorite of the franchise, actually. I thought just it best captured the things that are best about the franchise, the fighting, the system, the characters. It introduced a couple new characters that I thought elevated the game a little bit. And then it directed, I think, a little bit better than the first film. So for me, this is the best of the bunch. Then one, obviously didn't open it. I didn't watch this one last month, but Christmas Vacation, the Christmas classic from the Vacation franchise. Of course, I think it's hilarious. It's one I've been watching for 30 years since it very first came out. And my wife doesn't like it though. So that's probably why we didn't watch it last month and why it's still in the packaging, even though we own it. Then we got Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, a movie I only watched for the first time 2-3 weeks ago with my daughter. And it was at like 2 a.m. She woke up out of the blue, was like, hey, let's watch the movie. Like, okay, let's put on Cinderella. So real kind of delightful, fun little film. A nice adaptation. I don't fully understand the purpose of these live action versions of animated films, but it is well done. Then we got Coco, a very nice addition to the Pixar canon, doing something different, telling a different type of story. I found a little bit predictable, so it's not like top tier Pixar for me, but it's still a delightful film. Then we got James Mangold's, the guy that did Logan and the Wolverine, his film Copland, way back in the day before he was known for a classic superhero movie. He did a Stallone movie where Stallone gained a ton of weight. This is a cool movie. It's kind of one of these underappreciated crime dramas that I wish more people had seen. Then we've got Crazy Stupid Love. I don't know if you'd fully call it a rom-com, but it is kind of romantic. It is about love, and it is certainly a comedy and funny, and has just a crazy, insane cast that is a ton of fun to watch together. They've got great chemistry, and you have these two people right there, that Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, that have done other things again in the future, but I think this is the first one that they did, so lots of fun. Then we got Daredevil, a movie that a lot of people hate and a lot of people speak negatively of. I don't think it's that bad. It's not that great. I don't think it's deserving of all the hate. If you remove the playground sequence that's, of course, over the top, remove the bullseye on Bullseye's forehead, it's just kind of a mediocre, middle-of-the-road comic book movie. But because it's got a couple of these over-the-top elements, people, I think, are overly critical of it. Date Night, the team-up between Steve Carell and Tina Fey that people thought this would be great. Put these two people together. It's okay. It's not nearly as fun as it should be to see these two on screen together, since it's kind of a, kind of generic throwaway date night type movie of people having mistaken identities, being on this little adventure. Kind of the best part of the movie, where these two should be the best part of the movie, is the cameo from Mark Wahlberg that's just a ton of fun and really funny. So that was a little bit frustrating about that one, but it's still a good movie, good enough movie. Got Deadpool, the movie that took years and years and years to make, to try and fix the mistake that was X-Men Origins Wolverine's treatment of the Deadpool character. And then we got the movie after there was leaked footage from Comic-Con and a demo reel. Finally, the movie comes out, and it was everything we dreamed it could be. Just fresh, original, funny, a movie that just absolutely lived up to our expectations. And then, not quite living up to my expectations, was Deadpool 2. Still fun, still funny, bunch of great action, but this one for me had too many plot lines, too many things going on, as if they had a big brainstorming meeting, wrote every idea on the board, and they went, okay, we just need a script in 3 months because we want to turn this thing around in 2 years, so just go for it, all of them, just throw them all in there. And they probably could have pruned it down a little bit better and focused in on specific plot lines better, and I would have liked it more. This is the version, I've never actually watched the super duper cut of it, the extra R-rated version. I have watched the Once Upon a Deadpool version of it. They're all the same movie, Deadpool 2. I've seen the original theatrical and Once Upon a Deadpool. Not the one that I bought. Then we got Death Wish, a movie that a lot of people were very critical of. Got super low reviews, people trying to make it super critical or political. It's a Death Wish movie. Just have fun with it. It's supposed to be schlocky B movie. And that's what it is. It's not great. It's not fantastic, but it is certainly an enjoyable movie to watch Bruce Willis hunting down bad guys and killing them. I don't think it's good as the original, but you know, it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be good on its own terms. And I think it's good enough on its own terms. Then we got Despicable Me. A very fun concept for a movie. The minions are tons of fun. The voice cast is tons of fun. The world and animation of all of it, I think, are a good idea. The plot line isn't nearly as interesting to me as the specific characters and world that they're in. But yeah, it's classic Illumination of knowing how to have the right gimmicks to like make something entertaining, but I don't know that they're particularly great on the story level. Second movie, I think I've only seen it 1 or 2 times. Similar sort of statement, same sort of idea of like, yeah, the minions are still tons of fun. Characters are still tons of fun. What was the plot about in this one? I guess we have a friend in it. What was it about? And sometimes I honestly forget frequently what that movie's about. And right now I don't remember. I remember like a restaurant or something like that. Then we got Despicable Me 3, one that I thought introduced some interesting ideas, but it seemed like competing main plot lines because you got the one about Gru's brother, and then you got the one about the 80s guy, and I didn't think the two kind of went together. It just felt like two competing plot lines going on. I thought 80s guy there's a lot of potential in there for at least schlocky, fun, Illumination type entertainment. Never quite lived up to all of that, but you know, obviously still very enjoyable films because they do jam-pack them with so much entertainment value. Next up, we have the Die Hard collection, only the 4-film version, though, not the one that has whatever that final abomination. I think these are all good movies. Even some people critical of Live Free or Die Hard and Die Hard 2. They're fine for me. I don't have any major issues. They're not as good as the original. They don't live up to the original. But as for, are they fun enough movies that you can just take on their own, value what they are? Absolutely, for me, they are. Now, the first film in this one, Die Hard, I'd probably argue it's the greatest action movie of all time. Certainly if you take out sci-fi action out of the mix and just straight action movies, I go with Die Hard as the best of the bunch. That's just such a well-crafted script, such a well-cast movie in ways that, like, we look back on it and you go, of course Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman would make for a great villain. Of course this would be a great cast. But that's us looking back on it. At the time, Bruce Willis had been doing the show Moonlightings. He was doing like a rom-com TV show, and Alan Rickman was a theater actor. This was not obvious at the time. It absolutely worked, and so very cool one. And then I always forget, even though I know it, but Die Hard with a Vengeance, it's Bruce Willis with Mr. Glass, the whole movie. It's him with Samuel L. Jackson. They've done a bunch of movies together, and I know that. I've seen the movie 30 times on paper. Absolutely would get it right on a test, but in my brain I forget that these guys have worked together so many different times because Samuel L. Jackson really is in a ton of movies, including this movie right here. So we got Django Unchained, Quentin Tarantino's Western where he went for it, and you get Jamie Foxx goes over after a bunch of slave owners, and it is just a nice revenge fantasy with, of course, the brilliant scripting, directing, all of it from Quentin Tarantino. So just, I've only actually seen it one time because it's not the type of movie I can sit down and watch frequently. When I watched it, I was like, okay, this movie is just as cool as I was hoping it was going to be. And I'm going to watch it again in just a few months because I'm going to rank the Quentin Tarantino movies this summer. Then from there, we've got Dunkirk, another great one from Christopher Nolan. This one was a little bit divisive. Like, there's a bunch of people like, one of the best movies of the year, and then a bunch of people were like, there's like no character development in this movie. What are you talking about? For me, I'm in it's one of the best movies of the year category. I just thought it was very cool what he did with it, of having 3 different timelines all building to one finale. It worked for me on all the levels. Not every movie has to be about characters. Some are about the visceral experience. That's what this one was for me, and it worked as for what it was trying to do. Then we got Doctor Strange, just another solid MCU film that did something a little bit different, doing the sorcery world. It falls into the formula, yeah, but it delivers on the formula. It does it well. I had a blast with the movie. Next up, we got Elf, for me, one of the great Christmas movies. It's just a Christmas classic. Every time I watch it, It makes me laugh out loud. 15 years later, it still works for me on every level. The cast is great. Will Ferrell's born to play a role like this. And this is a Jon Favreau movie. The guy that invented Iron Man, not invented Iron Man, that's a false thing. The guy that directed the first one and popularized Iron Man. He was involved in the popularization of Iron Man. Same guy that did Elf, this one right here, and the same guy that's doing Lion King this summer. Love this movie. Another movie I love, Enchanted. Just a fun, delightful movie. Because now Amy Adams does almost exclusively like Oscar bait type movies when she's not playing Lois Lane. It's you can forget the fact that she was in Talladega Nights. You can forget that she was just great in Enchanted as this clueless princess in the real world that lives like a Disney princess, sings like a Disney princess, but is in a very cynical real world. Just a great little movie. The third act's not great, but the overall experience is. Then we've got Edge of Tomorrow, one of the worst marketed movies of the last 10 years, and also one of the most fun movies of the last 10 years. Just a delight. It has time loop element going on, combined with Tom Cruise kind of playing against character and is also playing into the stereotypical character for him. Just a tough version of Emily Blunt. So many wonderful things about it. It just works. Starting a new section, we've got Aragon, or as I call it, fantasy Star Wars, even though Star Wars is fantasy, or Star Wars with dragons. It just feels like a cheap knockoff of Star Wars to me, and it's not a very good movie. I've heard the book is better from my wife, but as for this one, not great. We did watch it on a cruise we went on with our family, so that was pretty cool. We watched it like 4 times because they were only playing like 2 movies, so we watched those 2 movies a ton of times. Next up, we got The Expendables 1. I always thought these movies were good enough. All of them are good enough to me, and I guess we'll get to them in just a second, but some people are like, oh, it didn't live up to all the people coming together. Like, do you know what type of movie they were trying to make? They weren't trying to make Terminator 2. They were making a schlocky 80s, 90s action movie. And that's what it is. Second one gets a little bit more tongue-in-cheek. I don't think it's necessarily for the better. The third act of this one's great because you do finally get Bruce Willis and Schwarzenegger joining in on blowing guys away. You get Van Damme doing his split kick and everything. The movie overall, I don't think is quite as strong as the first one. I know some people think this one's better. I don't think it's better. Then you got the third one that some people had a lot of issues with this one because they brought in a bunch of new guys. So they have the old Expendables and the new Expendables, and the old Expendables go away in the middle of the movie and the new Expendables take the lead. You got Ronda Rousey, and then there's stuff like that. It actually didn't bother me because you still got the old Expendables for 45 minutes at the beginning, 45 minutes at the end, and then blowing guys away and doing cool stuff. So it didn't bother me too much. All 3 of them, good enough. They work well enough. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I'm okay with this movie. I know some people are very critical of it as Harry Potter fanatics. I'm not like a Harry Potter fanatic. I just enjoy movies and watched all the Harry Potter movies. This one, the tonally, it's a bit off. There's a little bit. It's like really dark at certain points in time, like child abuse, and then it's like, let's look at these quirky little creatures. So it's a little bit of a weird direction to go with it, but the movie's fine overall. We got Fantastic Four, the double feature of the Tim Story versions of the characters. This one is one that I also, like Daredevil, overly hated, I think, in that it's not like it's a great movie, but it's a product of its time, and we're still figuring out how to do comic book movies. I said that as if we were doing, as if me and you were the ones designing. That's not quite what happened. But, they were still trying to figure out how to do these movies right. And right before the MCU kind of launched, and if you watch them on their own terms, if you watch these ones in particular as if they were a TV movie, they're a lot better. They're a lot more watchable for me. If you watch them as a blockbuster, you're like, okay, this seems kind of small scale, but I don't hate them. Another weird one, Fantastic Four, or Fan Four Stick from just a few years ago. One of the most bizarre stories of the last however many years it is, where the director was like apparently having meltdowns on set. They had unreasonable expectations for him. They changed the game in the middle of filming, cut scenes and stuff. So he has this meltdown. So right before the movie comes out, he puts out a tweet saying, there was a great Fantastic Four movie that apparently no one will see because they're putting out this crap. Like he trashed his own movie a couple days before it came out, which is not a good move if you're trying to keep your job in Hollywood. So yeah, he did that and hasn't done any movies since then. He's got one coming out this year, but the first 45 minutes I don't think are bad. overly dark for Fantastic Four, but they're not bad. And then the movie goes off the rails in the last 45 minutes, unfortunately. Next up, we've got Fast Five, a great classic Taco Bell movie for me. It's dumb. It's indefensibly stupid and very enjoyable to watch. Just a movie that knew it was dumb and embraced it all the way. Then we got A Few Good Men, one of my favorite Tom Cruise movies outside of his big franchises and everything. This one, I saw this one in the theater. I've always enjoyed this one. It hits on some of the right notes with some of the parent stuff and, you know, living up to legacies and behind the scenes, and does he have the potential? Very interesting stuff. And I like courtroom drama, so works nicely. This was the first 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray I ever purchased. Then we got Fight Club, Steelbook. I should have mentioned that with Fan 4-Stick, the Steelbook as well. Fight Club, David Fincher classic based off of a Chuck Palahniuk book. Nihilistic and everything. Came out right as I was like a senior in high school, or right before I was in high school, or right before I was a senior, right around there. Came out in 99. And so this is the movie that everybody watched all the time. And then we'd go in the backyard and beat the crap out of each other because we didn't fully capture the message of the movie. But yeah, I need to watch that one more. Then we got Final Destination. By chance, I happen to be watching through all of these movies to do a ranking in the near future. But so I actually watched this movie 2 days ago, and a nice little early zeros horror film. More violent than I actually remembered. I thought it was a PG-13 movie when I put it in. I was like, whoa, that is definitely not PG-13 death right there. And so a nice concept. I don't know if we needed 5 of them. I don't know if it makes sense to have 5 of them, but a fun movie nonetheless. Then we got Finding Nemo, probably my favorite Pixar movie. I didn't watch this one when it came out because I was like 21, 22, so not something I'd be interested in. Watched it after I had kids, and so you watch it and you relate to Marlin more than Nemo when you're a grown up, and you're like, oh, I get this movie so much. This makes so much sense. Then we got The Firm, another Tom Cruise movie that I watched growing up back in the day, based off a John Grisham book. Just a fun, it's not a courtroom, but legal thriller of sorts. And so, yeah, if you haven't seen this one, I'd check it out. What I got for my son for Christmas, The Flash Lego Movie. They've got a bunch of these direct-to-video Lego movies that are like cutscenes. They're not actually cutscenes from the video games, but they're like the cutscenes from the video games, and they're very watchable. They're not great or anything, but they're still a good bit of fun. Then we got the 8-movie Friday the 13th collection. And see, this is the slasher franchise I grew up watching. I didn't watch the Halloween movies so much or the Nightmare on Elm Street movies so much, but these ones came on TNT, TBS, on cable late Friday night, and I would just stay up after my mom went to bed watching these movies out of order. I didn't even know the continuity or anything like that. And so this is the franchise that I grew up on. Next up in that line, we got the remake of Friday the 13th that I thought I was actually really enjoyable. Some people don't like it and they have criticisms of it. They seem real odd to me. Like they're like nitpicking how fast he can run and things like that. Like that is not what I care about this franchise, but that's cool that that's what you care about. Then we got this 3-pack, 3 different franchises. I went with Friday the 13th, which is ironic since it's the remake. I just showed you that we have a version of it, but it's the remake of that one, the remake of Friday the 13th, and Freddy vs. Jason on Blu-ray. So, yeah, this one I did not like. Not a remake I enjoyed. Freddy vs. Jason, I still have a ton of fun with that one. That's one of those ones that fond memories of going with my friends to go see it opening night, and, you know, did it scare me? Of course not, because it's kind of a stupid movie. Did I have fun with it? Absolutely I did. Then we got Forgetting Sarah Marshall, one of these kind of more human emotion-based comedies from the Judd Apatow type era of stuff. This was never one of my favorites. I enjoyed Knocked Up a 40-Year-Old Virgin more than this one, but still a fun time. Excuse me, I just burped. Four Christmases, a really bad movie that my wife and I watch every single Christmas. And every time I watch it, I'm weirdly enjoy this while at the same time being like, this is terrible. This is not good at all. But it really is a great cast. Then we got Galaxy Quest, a movie that is so, on its own terms, just if you don't know anything about Star Trek, it's still a very enjoyable sci-fi kind of spoof fun movie. But if you are into Star Trek culture, William Shatner, know all the behind the scenes stuff, it is a gem of a movie. And as a Star Trek fan that knows all that stuff, that went to Star Trek conventions, was going to Star Trek conventions up until right before this movie came out, a classic. Get Smart. My wife and I went to go see this one in the theater. We hadn't watched The Office before this, saw this movie, went, I like this Steve Carell guy. I remember him from Bruce Almighty. Now he's getting a movie career. He has a TV show. Let's check that out. And after watching this movie, we watched The Office, and we haven't stopped since. We've rewatched it 7,000 times since watching Get Smart. And this movie is in and of itself, I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. It's a good time for me. Not an amazing film or anything, but still one that every time I put it in, I have fun with it. Then we got the Ghost Rider movies. The first movie I've seen 2 times. I watched it in the theater and was like, what on earth is this? And then I rewatched it a month ago. And then the second one, Spirit of Vengeance, had never seen it until last month. I was sick with the flu and watched these ones back to back. I think they're better than I remembered, or the one I've seen was better than I remembered. And the other one was better than I expected it to be because I'd heard such bad things about it. They're not great. They got big problems, but I don't think they're the abominations that people put them out there claim that they are. They have moments, they have scenes that are really easy to pick on, and I think that's what you see a lot of. And so, easy to pick on, not actually terrible movie. Next section, we've got Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Ghostbusters 1, of course, is a classic. So funny, clever, witty, all that fun stuff. I don't think the second one's very good. I don't think it lives up to the first one, and I think the remake is actually better than Ghostbusters 2, which a lot of people disagree with. And so I got this version of it. Very cool production pictures, little booklet thing there, a note from Ivan Reitman, so nice little version of it. Then we got Godzilla. I actually enjoy this movie. I know a lot of people were frustrated with the fact that you don't get to see Godzilla until the very end, but I thought you got to see other monsters, so that didn't bother me at all, and I'm excited to see the new one. Romeo and Juliet. I haven't seen it. Don't want to see it. My sister-in-law bought it and then gave it to us because she didn't have a Blu-ray player. And so it's like, I can't play what's a Blu-ray. There's a difference. Yeah, there's a difference. So she gave it to us. Greatest Showman, a movie that I think has amazing music and is only an okay movie. It's telling of this story is just so shallow that, it could have had a lot more depth to it, but it was so focused on musical numbers and stuff that it entertains on the most important level for a musical. As for deep storytelling, not so much. Next up, we got The Guardian, a movie about lifeguards and stuff like that with Kevin Costner and Ashton Kutcher. Fun fact, this is the first movie that my wife and I watched after we got married. Some people do certain things on their honeymoons. My wife and I watched The Guardian. We got Guardians of the Galaxy, a personal favorite from the MCU for me, just a movie that has a special place in my heart. Just such a unique, fun experience watching this movie. I took my interns to go see it. Just a great little experience. The week after we saw the movie, we went on a trip to the Navajo Nation, and we're just quoting the movie to each other all week long. Great, great memories for me. Second movie, the movie that I've probably received the most angry responses about my take on this one, because it is one of the biggest disappointments in a long time for me, because I loved the first one so much, and this one, thought the tone was off. I didn't think the story worked very well. It's still funny, but beyond being funny, I don't think much anything else works about this movie, unfortunately. Then we got the Halloween Collection 10-disc set. I hadn't seen almost any of these movies until a little over a year ago. I'd seen the first one because I'm a big John Carpenter fan. I think I'd seen the second one. I think I'd seen H2O. But all of the stuff in the middle and the zombie ones, I hadn't watched them. So it's kind of fun to start watching through these. I've watched through all of them a couple times now in the last year and a half. And so, I can have fun with the slasher genre. So once to kind of put it in the background and kind of join the conversation about the franchise, that's been fun. A nice surprise little comedy that came out 10 years ago now, The Hangover. I thought this one was so funny when it first came out. Fortunately, the sequels didn't quite live up to it, and for me, kind of tarnished the series' reputation a bit, which is a pretty big disappointment, but the original, so funny. Then we have Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I've talked about these many times. I'm not like a diehard Harry Potter person, but it's a fun world to go to, and Christopher Columbus makes it just kind of this whimsical, fun place to go to with a nice John Williams score. Next up, we've got Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I actually just finished listening to the book of this today. So fun little connection to the universe. This is a movie that's way too long. It should be about 30 minutes shorter than it is. It puts everything in the book in the movie, but it's more focused than the first film. Not as good as the first film, but more focused. And it's nice to meet Dobby. Dobby's a fun character. We have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, or as I call it, the best of the Harry Potter movies. Got time travel, which I love. It has some nice new characters. You get Gary Oldman in the mix, and just a story that you can follow. Some of the later ones we'll get to have so much plot that you can't follow it because they couldn't cram all of the book into a movie. This one, right at that sweet spot where you still could. Then we got Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. When I did my last Harry Potter ranking, I had this one really low on the list. I don't know, maybe I had a bad day when I watched it, but a lot of people were not happy with my placement of this movie. I need to rewatch it and see if I just had gone crazy that day. Then we got Harry Potter and the Order of Phoenix, a movie that I think has a very cool story. Feels like it's montaging through its story a little bit, but I love the fact that there's an actual threat. Our students are teaming up to take down the threat, and there's actual stakes. Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. Weird movie. Confusing, hard to follow because they tried to cram way too much into it, had to cut too much out of it. I don't like what they did with the color scheme, and they're trying to communicate the world's getting evil as darkness grows, so it's desaturated. I don't buy it. I don't dig it. We had Deathly Hallows Part 1. Too slow for me. I'm not quite sure that I think they should have cut 1 and 2. I'm not crazy about that plan. Part 2, quite good. Very satisfying. Getting to finally see everything we built through in this last set of movies all kind of come together. So, nice little conclusion. Then we've got Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. I haven't watched this one yet, so I'm going to watch it for the first time in the next few months, and pretty excited about that since Quentin Tarantino fan of Westerns, fan of this entire cast. I just didn't see it when it came out, and I missed it, and it's like such a long movie that to sit down and watch it's kind of a bit of a homework assignment. So, prepping for this ranking that's coming, it's going to happen. Then we got Hidden Figures, a movie that came out, I guess, 2 years ago. Wow, it's been 2 years since this one came out. And it's a fun little movie about the NASA and the women of color that were involved in the process as calculators. Just a nice little heartwarming story that it reminded me of a bunch of this is a weird connection make, but it reminded me of Cool Runnings, which is a movie about Jamaican sled team, but it's nothing like that, but it's like it in like the tone and the vibe of it in this other sense. And then we've got The Hitman's Bodyguard, another 4K, another one that I bought on Black Friday. I just had fun with this one. It's a movie that it doesn't have a brilliant concept. It's a real basic concept for a movie. And the whole appeal really of it is it's just fun to watch these two guys going back and forth for 2 hours. You take two funny, high energy, very charismatic leads, put them together, quipping with each other. You got Salma Hayek getting thrown in the mix, a bunch of people thrown in the mix. I just had fun with it. Next section, we have got Home Alone, a Christmas classic with one of the GOATs in regards to being a greatest of all time child actors. Just some sort of charm that this Macaulay Culkin had when he was that age. My kids absolutely love him. The magic is still there if you watch it now to this day. And of course, just classic finale watching bad guys being tortured. Then we got Home Alone 2. Could be called Home Alone 2 TOO because it's just more of the same. He's not at home, he is in New York, but it follows kind of beat for beat the same. You swap one thing out for the other. Very similar everything, and it still works. Still just as fun, still just as funny. Then we got Madagascar. I haven't really watched this one. My kids have been watching a lot. They love this movie. I don't think I haven't actually watched it. It's kind of been in the background while they were watching it, so I need to do that one of these days. We got How to Train Your Dragon 2. No, How to Train Your Dragon 1. Why would I not have How to Train Your Dragon 1? I need to fix that. So I think a copy of it is just scratches what happened. But so How to Train Your Dragon 2, great follow-up to the first one, had more themes, adding to the stuff that worked in the original and finding that place to take those next steps to continue the story and have all the elements that you want from the original. Stellar score on these movies. We got The Incredible Hulk, A movie that I do not understand why people don't like it. I get why people don't love it. It's not a movie I'm saying, everyone, you should love this movie. I don't think it's worthy of that. I just don't get why people don't like it. I don't understand why everyone thinks it's the worst or one of the worst MCU films. Like for me, it's in the lower half, but it's a very enjoyable film. And so I find myself constantly defending this when people are like, are you serious? You've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 below The Incredible Hulk. Are you crazy? No, I don't think I'm crazy. I think you might be a little bit crazy because I can explain to you plot issues with the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I can explain to you tone issues. I can explain why it's off-putting to watch Baby Groot being tortured by grown men that are laughing. This is a movie that it doesn't have the humor of the MCU, but I don't understand a lot why people don't like it. Maybe you can tell me in the comment section. Then we've got Inception, just one of the coolest scripted and thought out movies ever put out there. Just what Nolan was able to do in crafting all the different characters and elements that tied into this film and how it kind of comes to a conclusion that makes sense. I just think it's phenomenal what he was able to do with this and the passion, creativity, and that's why he's one of the legends. One of the GOATs, as I just said. Then we got Independence Day Resurgence. I don't have the original one, but I've got Resurgence. You can get these ones like $5 at Best Buy most of the time, so that's why I have this one. I didn't hate it the way other people did, but it's not good. It's not, I don't think it's a movie that like, type film. I mean, some people just, how vicious they were towards it. I don't get that, but yeah, major disappointment as it goes down. Then we got the complete Indiana Jones adventures. For me, Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, two of the best adventure films of all time. Not like, they're really good, like best categories where we're talking about, and it's just which one is the best is kind of the question. I think Temple of Doom is great as well, and Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls is not great. It has things in it that I think are really good. I think some, for the obvious reasons it's criticized, but I think people downplay some of the things in it that actually do still work inside of the film. Then we got Inglourious Bastards. I've never 100% watched this movie. I've mostly watched this movie, but I haven't had a proper sit down because like when the time we were watching it, like the power went out or something like that. And I was like, oh man, I wonder if they're gonna get this Hitler guy. And so I didn't properly see the end of it. But so near future, that's going to happen. It's one of those weird things. Like I love Quentin Tarantino, but his movies are just such experiences to watch that some of these like more recent ones I haven't had the full experience of watching them yet because I haven't been able to sit down and properly do it because like they're not thing you put something on there. No, you watch them. Power went out. Probably Hitler did it. Then we got The Iron Giant, a Brad Bird animated classic from 20 years ago, and a movie that just, you know, animated gorgeously. It tugs on the heartstrings. If you haven't seen it, you got to check that one out. Got Inside Out, just such a smart Pixar movie. This is why I get annoyed when Pixar does sequels, because when they do originals, they come up with these brilliant ideas almost every time. And like in the case of this one, finding a way to communicate puberty and cognitive development for children and tweens, that's impressive. We got Iron Man, the movie that kicked off the MCU, another Jon Favreau film where he did not invent Iron Man, but he did popularize him, set the tone. I rewatched it about 3 weeks ago. It's a very good movie, very enjoyable, and a movie that I think stands the test of time. And it's nice to see a Marvel movie without the weight of the universe on its shoulders. A movie that has a little bit too much of the weight of the universe on its shoulders. Iron Man 2, a movie that is not as good as the first one. Cast is still fun, charismatic, enjoyable. Chemistry is still there. All that stuff's still great. This story, however, I just don't think is very good. Then we got Iron Man 3, a movie that feels weird inside of the MCU. Kind of an odd direction to take things. And so I don't think it necessarily works on all of those levels. But once again, the cast is still great. I think the story works better than Iron Man 2. Some twists and turns, not necessarily the best, but a movie overall that I still think is very enjoyable. It the movie that I keep trying to get my wife to watch with me, but for some reason she doesn't want to watch the movie about clown in the sewers eating kids for some reason. So I'm very excited to see the second one. Thoroughly enjoyed this one. Then we got this Jack Ryan 5-film set. I grew up watching the old Jack Ryan movies, Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games, and so I've always had a soft spot for Jack Ryan type adventures. And so then we got the new series that came out last fall. Picked this one up, rewatched all these movies, and I still very much enjoy the Jack Ryan movies. Not all of them are as strong as other ones, but in general, very nice little series. Then we have Jaws. Jaws makes an appearance finally. I hadn't seen this before I got married. This is my wife's favorite movie of all time. I love Spielberg. Love so many of Spielberg's other movies. Grew up watching all of them. I didn't watch this one until I got married, which is a crazy thing to be a true statement, but it is a true statement. And I've remedied that about 17,000 times since getting married. John Wick, the action movie that came out of nowhere where suddenly Keanu Reeves became super duper relevant as an action star once again. And we always knew he had it in him, but it seemed like he was doing all kinds of other things. We weren't paying attention. And then John Wick changed all of that as he avenged his dog. John Wick 2, a great sequel that it didn't try to outdo the how do you outdo his dog getting killed. Doesn't try and do that. No, instead it digs deep into the mythology, the world building, and I thought it was just a really smart way to do a sequel to the first John Wick film. And then we have the original Jumanji, a movie from Joe Johnston, the guy that did Captain America First Avenger, did Jurassic Park 3. And yeah, just a nice, fun adventure that I was a little bit old when it came out, so I wasn't crazy about it when it came out, but I can appreciate it more now that I have kids. The next one should be Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle, but I guess I've loaned out my copy of it to someone, so it would be right here. I think it's great. Jurassic Park, one of the great thrillers of all time, a movie that really does make you feel like dinosaurs could come alive and just so well crafted. You forget that the first hour of the movie, no one's in danger, and the amount of the movie where people are in danger is fairly small relative to the runtime. Great score, just great characters, fantastic little film. Lost World, I've never been crazy about it. I think it's enjoyable enough. Like if it's on and I watch it, I'll be engaged and I'll have fun with it. But both main plot lines of it, whether you're talking about them trying to collect animals or you're talking about the Godzilla third act of the film, I just don't resonate with too much. So it relies entirely on the thrills that are there. Spielberg's so great at that stuff. Ian Malcolm is still fun to watch, but the movie overall, I don't think it's just that strong. Even weaker, however, is Jurassic Park 3 from that Joe Johnston we spoke about just a few seconds ago. A movie that I think that feels like a TV episode of Jurassic Park, the TV show or something like that. It just feels small scale, it feels cheap, it's lit kind of weird, and just in general doesn't feel like a big cinematic film worthy of the franchise. Then we have Jurassic World, another, for me, classic Taco Bell film. Very easy to watch, very enjoyable, because you got this guy on a motorcycle with raptors. What more could you want from a movie? Apparently some people wanted more of a plot and better characters and character development. For me, Chris Pratt with raptors is all I need to be entertained. Then we have the next movie with him with raptors, and I still haven't rewatched it, even though I bought it. I was not crazy about this movie, the direction that they went, where they ended things, not so much. Justice League, yeah, one of the biggest disappointments of all time, and for no good reason. Like, there's no reason that a Justice League movie should be this mediocre. And at the end of the day, I don't blame Snyder, I don't blame Whedon, I certainly don't blame the cast. I blame the studio for sanitizing the whole thing and just killing any sort of excitement that could have been inside of the film, because they just had so many studio notes. You could just feel everything, every sharp edge being sanded off. So people talk about, oh, I want to see the Snyder cut of Justice League. I'm not really all that interested in it. I don't think it'll be that good. I don't think it'll be that much better, because the studio was already interfering before they started filming. The studio was telling him, sand off the edges. I'm just not all that interested in that. Then we got The Karate Kid. I love this movie. Classic story of a boy in need of a father and a father in need of a son, and told through this world of a karate tournament and bullying. So many timeless emotions to it that just still resonate. And we have the remake with Jaden Smith and Jackie Chan. That's not really the Karate Kid. It should be the Kung Fu Kid. Who cares? Whatever. It's a branding thing. I get why they had to do it. But, however, they decreased the age of the kids to middle school. That makes the movie weird. Like, it doesn't make any sense for 11-year-olds to be like pulling alpha male stuff and doing like this, the way it's shown in it, how strong they're shown to be. Like, it's like a weird, they changed the age so that Jaden Smith could be the star of it. It was like, Will, why didn't you just wait a few more years and you could still have your son doing the split kick up in the air? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have 11-year-olds behaving the way they behave in this one. Then we got Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. So I saw these ones in the theater, and I was big into martial arts at the time, but I actually felt kind of disappointed, especially with the second. First one, I saw tons of great martial arts and cool stuff that was like very much all the moves I was watching at the time. And then the second one just felt really anticlimactic because they get the guy from Kung Fu and they don't really do anything with him. Rewatching it as an adult, it had a little bit more thematic resonance to it. I could connect with it on different levels than I did when I was younger, so that kind of helped. But yeah, I still wish the second one was a little bit more had a bit more oomph to it. Then we got, in a nice steelbook form, Kingsman: The Secret Service. Just a pleasant, where did that come from? High energy spy movie that kind of turned all our expectations of the genre upside down. And then the sequel that you can see, I haven't opened this one up yet. Got it on sale at Black Friday. That really disappointed me. It was like they immediately killed off a certain set of characters from the first film and brought dead characters back from the first film. It was like, this is like disrespectful the way you're doing this. I am not caring for direction I'm taking this. Then we got Kung Fu Panda. I've never actually fully watched all three of these movies. I've kind of watched the first one, but I haven't really done a proper reviewing these ones. So some people say, hey, could you rank the Kung Fu Panda movies? I need to sit down and watch all of them to make that happen. Krampus, a movie I was going to review for a podcast back in December, and then we switched up what movies we're going to talk about. So we talked about Gremlins, so my Krampus copy is not open, so I haven't actually seen that one. La La Land, a Damien Chazelle film that I thought was good. I did not understand fully as much, like, best musical in 50 years. I don't know about all that hype. It's it does what it's trying to do very well. The cast is great. There's some songs that are memorable, touches on some emotions. Emma Stone presents herself as an amazing actress, trying to act in some of the, there's some scenes that are just phenomenal in it. I just don't know that I fully understood some of the best in 50 years hype. Then we got one of my daughter's movies, Leap, the ballerina movie. She watches one now. She's wanted to be a ballerina ever since. It doesn't resonate with me, not a movie I particularly enjoyed, but I love that my daughter loves it. The Lego Movie, such a pleasant, high energy surprise that they made it work. And it's a movie that, since it came out, my perspective on it has changed. So when it first came out, I watched it, just having fun on the adventure. And then Will Ferrell shows up and he's like gluing everything together. It was like, who does that? Why would you glue them together? The fun of it is playing with them. And then my son got into Legos and I started building sets for him. And then I come back and he's taking them apart and they're smashed and why are you doing this? I need to start gluing his sets together. I've turned into the dad in the Lego Movie. No! So it'll be interesting to watch the Lego Movie 2, which I think I'm watching this Saturday, actually. Yeah, I'm watching it this Saturday, so that'll be fun to see if I continue to be the Will Ferrell character. The Lego Ninjago Movie, big disappointment. My son's real into the Lego Ninjago stuff, the TV show, and has the video game, actually the video game for this movie and everything. But it felt to me like they were trying to take the mythology of a TV show and cram it into the template and the formula of the Lego Movie, and it didn't work. It didn't work all that way. It's not dreadful. It's just not all that good. Then we have The Lion King in a case that is too tall and black, not blue, but it is still actually the Blu-ray. My favorite animated film of all time. Touches on just some cool emotions, very memorable songs. So, one that I thoroughly enjoy. Limitless. Just one of these movies that it kind of gotten a little bit forgotten by time, even though they had a TV show from a year ago or 2 years ago, which itself has kind of been forgotten by time. But just a nice little thriller about one of these fantasy ideas that we all have, like, what if there was a pill that made me really smart? That's what this movie's about, and I thought it was it drops a couple plot lines throughout the runtime of the film, but in general, still good. Lone Survivor, one of the Pete Berg and Mark Wahlberg team-ups. I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know if I like it or not, but it's one of these ones that I know it's heavy and weighty, and so I need to watch it when I can really watch it, and I just haven't had the reason to do that as of yet. The Lorax, I had fun with it. It's illumination, so just big music numbers, vibrant colors, flashy. It doesn't hit on all the emotional levels like it thinks it does, but a good enough film. We're officially over halfway through this video. The secret code word to comment down below to tell me that you've watched over an hour of this video and made it over halfway through it is Red Apple. Red Apple is the code word. Comment that down below so I know some of you actually have watched to this point in time. Then we got Mad Max. I'm a huge Mel Gibson fan. I'm a huge fan of action movies, post-apocalyptic stuff, weird stuff. And so this is a great one. Structured weird world building, very odd film. Much weirder than people I think realize that it like, oh yeah, Mad Max Fury Road. This is like, the whole series is bizarre in the world building that he was doing. And all that started in the original one that doesn't even explain what's happening. You're just in this world that's going nuts. And then The Road Warrior, a movie that picks up down the line a little bit and is even crazier, weirder, faster paced. This is actually my favorite of the franchise. It's the one that I grew up watching, paved the road for the Fury Road to come along and do the blockbuster treatment of it. But just as a Mel Gibson fan, and just I think the story is stronger on this one than as is Fury Road. Don't like this one. I do not like Beyond Thunderdome, never have. And so after watching the first two on TBS TNT, I was like, there's a third one, this will be great. Oh, bigger budget? No, didn't like it back in the day, didn't like it when I watched it 10 years ago, and didn't like it when I watched it 6 months ago. It's a movie that just doesn't, I don't get what he was going for, really. It just doesn't, it just, like on the basic level, Tina Turner is not only acting in the movie, but has several songs in it. What? And then there's a 30-year jump and we get Fury Road, which is just crazy that they allowed this movie to be made, that they gave him $150 million to do a largely practical, all chase stunt movie, bringing back a 30-year-old franchise that the last one hadn't done as well as they wanted it to do. Crazy that that was allowed to happen, but very glad it was allowed to happen. And if you're going to get someone to replace Mel Gibson, Tom Hardy is such a great choice. I loved that casting. He knocked it out of the park. And so cool to see Charlize Theron in that Furiosa role. So very, very cool movie. Then we got Major League. I really enjoy this movie. It's just one of these comedies that back in the day, everyone talked about it, but it seems like time has forgotten it a little bit. And, Charlie Sheen has made some poor choices over the last 10 years, so kind of the butt end of a lot of jokes in the wrong way. But back in the day, he is a very enjoyable actor, and this is just kind of a fun little movie. Got Rene Russo in there mixed too. A bunch of familiar faces. Like you watch this and you just keep going, oh, this person's in it, this person's in it, this person's in it. So if you haven't seen this one, you like sports, you like comedies, give it a try. Then we've got Man of Steel. When I first watched this movie, I was a little bit just like, I really enjoyed it, and I certainly really enjoyed sequences in it, but I felt kind of like, I don't know that I like what you did with this one. And so as years have passed, every time I've rewatched it, I've liked it a little bit more as I've watched it on its own terms. There's a few things I would change. There's a few things I wish they hadn't done. But overall, I think this one is pretty great. Then we've got 2 copies of The Matrix because I'm stupid. And sometimes I go to Best Buy and I go, oh, The Matrix, only $5. I don't think I have that one. And I buy an additional copy of it. So I got 2 copies. One is, kind of throwaway deal. The other one, kind of cool, steelbook version of it. As for the movie itself, one of the greats, sci-fi action movies of all time. Just it's when the first time I watched it, I thought, it's way too much like all these Hong Kong movies. It's too much like John Woo. It's too much like these not Jackie Chan, but Jet Li movies, because with the Wire Fu, it's too much like the Terminator. And then it clicked in my mind like, oh, it's really like, wait, yeah, that's a lot of very different movies to be like all at once and tell a coherent story that's new and different. Wow, I'm so glad that exists. And as soon as I got over my own kind of pretentious, like, I've watched a Hard Boiled, I've seen the kill. Once I got past all of that stuff that I knew what their influences were as a very arrogant young person, I was like, I love this movie. The sequels, not so much. But the original, they pulled philosophy, action, kung fu, sci-fi all together. Literally all the stuff that I love in one movie, and I was complaining about it when it first came out. I was stupid when I was young, and I was stupid until this video started recording, actually. Next, and I'll be ranking those in a few months. Next up, we got The Maze Runner. I wasn't really crazy about any of these ones. Yeah, don't have much to say about that. The Meg. Once again, we're talking about a dumb shark movie. My wife loves these ones, and so as soon as this came out, she's, you're gonna get the Meg, right? It's like, you want me to get the Meg? Oh yeah, you gotta get the Meg. You gotta get the Meg. So I rushed out and I got the Meg, or actually she did disc to digital, and so that this actually isn't open yet because we got the digital one on Vudu, and then they sent us the physical copy in the mail because I like to have physical copies to put on my shelf. And she's wanted the movie instantly, and it hadn't fully been released yet. So dumb shark movie. I enjoyed it well enough. Men in Black. Just a fun movie, just tons of fun. When it came out, that first one, Will Smith was just on this streak of big hit movies that everybody loved. Everybody knew the songs that he did for them, and everyone was talking about that movie. So love those ones. Very curious about the sequel that's coming this summer. Or sequel, reboot, remake, whatever it is, coming this summer with not Will Smith in it. Then we've got the first 3 Mission Impossible movies. So these are like the spy movies of my formative years. The first one came out in '96 when I was like high school or starting high school. The second one came out right when I graduated high school, and then the third one came out right as I started dating my wife, and so was one of our first date night movies. So these are movies that impacted me a lot, were important to me. And the second one, not so great. And when it came out, I was so excited because, as I just mentioned to you about The Matrix, I was a big John Woo fan. So I was like, John Woo's directed, this will be amazing. Wasn't so amazing, but I appreciate that they tried something different. I don't hold that I don't like Mission Impossible 2 against the franchise. It's like, okay, every franchise everyone can't be the best. This is an interesting, not good one, so I'll take it. So even though I don't think it's that good, I really just appreciate that they changed things up. And then they switched things up going into the fourth one with Ghost Protocol. They got Brad Bird, the guy that did Iron Giant, and the Dubai sequence is one of the best sequences I've ever seen in a movie theater. Change it up again, and they get Mission Impossible Rogue Nation with Christopher McQuarrie, and once again, it just seemed like they were getting better and better. This is a franchise that has kind of done the impossible of it. Kind of like people didn't like it because of the second one. The third one came out right as Tom Cruise was kind of in crazy Tom Cruise mode, so it's kind of petering on people's interests, and then somehow it's like more popular and liked than ever. And part of that one is this new one, Mission Impossible Fallout. Just purchased this one just a few weeks back. Nice little steelbook here. For this one, the price was right. So I don't normally buy steelbooks when they first come out, but this one was like, I have to get this one because it looks so pretty and it's not crazy expensive. And for the first time, they brought a director back and it still worked. The formula still paid off and everything. We got Mr. Peabody and Sherman. If you haven't seen this one, if you're into animated films and haven't seen this one, I highly recommend you checking this one out. It's a time travel story, real clever script. Whichever year it came, I think it came out the same year as the Lego movie. I liked this movie more than the Lego movie. And like most people, I really like the Lego movie, but this one I just, with the time travel and the way all the pieces came together, and it's also kind of hyperkinetic, chaotic, ADD type storytelling, just with time travel and elements like that. And I really dug it, obviously. Then we got the first Mummy movie, and I wasn't one of these people who was ever like crazy about these movies. Like now, like I've had fun with all of them when I've watched them, but I was never someone that was like, I love the Mummy, and went and saw the second one and was like, wow, this is shockingly bad CGI at the end of this movie. It's The Rock's first big role in a movie. Is playing the Scorpion King in the third act of the second Mummy movie, and it's terrible CGI. Murder on the Orient Express, Murder on the Orient Express. I thought this one was good enough little mystery. I could have done with more showing and less telling. There's a lot of telling us things instead of showing us things. And I'd had the ending spoiled for me before I saw this version of it, and I hadn't seen a previous version. It was just a bit spoiled for me. So the ending didn't hit as hard as it should have. And I didn't feel like you could put the mystery together with what they gave us. And that's frustrating when you have a mystery that they don't actually give you, the audience, the clues. But overall, just such a fun, like a great cast. So it's entertaining enough on that level alone. My Little Pony, the movie, a movie I took my daughter to go see. That was a fun little experience to get to do that with her. As for the movie itself, it's a My Little Pony movie, so I'm not the target audience. Then we have National Treasure 2. I'm not sure why I don't have National Treasure 1, but National Treasure 2, I really like both of these movies. I think they're just fun little adventures with a little bit of pseudo-history in there, overly patriotic in the way they're designed. And I just dig all of that fun stuff about those movies. So for me, they're very enjoyable films that I don't understand why they didn't make a third one, given that the second one made a lot of money and Nicolas Cage clearly needs some money. And so I hope they make a third one and can do it right and capture the experience of the first two movies. Now we've got A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 7-film collection. Now, I haven't seen all of these, actually. I've seen over half of the 7 films inside of this list. I've seen the first movie a bunch of times. That's one I've watched a bunch of times. But as a franchise, it's not one that I ever watched through. I don't know if they weren't on TNT and TBS as much as the Friday the 13th movies. I don't know, whatever the reason was, but these ones I did not experience the way that I did that franchise. So I'm excited at some point in time this year, gonna watch through these, gonna rank the franchise, finally taking this series on. It's going to happen. The original, very cool movie, just like very smart, clever way to do a horror movie. And then as they went along, some of them got a little bit goofier, and that's probably also why I haven't watched some of them, because I didn't want to watch the total crap in the series. Office Space, a movie I clearly love because it's still in the wrapper. Actually, the movie, every time I watch it, I have a ton of fun with it, but it's one of those ones that always seems to get on the back burner, and I always delay watching it again. But yeah, real fun, clever comedy if you haven't seen it. Oblivion, a not so great sci-fi movie that is not one of the better Tom Cruise films. Unfortunately, just real dull. Twists and turns that don't really pay off, that aren't all that interesting. So unfortunately not one that I love. Then we have the Oceans movies, 11 through 12. It doesn't have the one from the 1960s, even though the one from the 60s does exist. Never actually seen that one. I've seen these ones a ton of times. Such cool movies, great cast, high energy, makes for a good time watching them. When they came out, everybody loved the first several of them. By the third one, I think some of the cultural impact was gone, but just seeing everybody together in that first one was just something real special. Then we have Pacific Rim. Sorry, my nose is itching. When I talk too long, my nose starts itching. It starts to turn red. So the longer this, you can probably rewind this video and see if my nose has changed to a brighter shade of red as I talk. That's what happens in my videos. Pacific Rim. I've actually never been on the Pacific Rim's the best train. Some people absolutely love this movie or are bonkers over it. I've always been like, that was a cool movie. I enjoyed that. Now, it probably doesn't help that the first time I watched it was on a laptop with my wife in a hospital. Like right after our second child was born, this movie had just come out on video, and so we got it from Redbox, slipped it into the laptop, and watched it on this itty bitty little screen in a hospital. So, maybe that tainted my experience. And on the flip side of that one, I never understood understood the hate for this one either. Maybe it's because I didn't hype the original one up, so I wasn't expecting the second one to be something fantastic or anything. But people like crap on this movie, and I just don't get it. I don't understand what there's to hate about it. Not saying it's great, not saying it's amazing, but it provided a whole lot of big robots fighting each other and big robots fighting monster creature Jaeger things, kaiju things. So I don't get it. Then we have the Peanuts movie. Just such a fun return to this franchise where they found a way to do modern animation that is so true to the classic animation, so true to the style, the themes, everything about the old Peanuts films, cartoons, and comic strips right here in this film with modern aesthetics. So this is a neat movie. I love Pitch Perfect. It's a movie that I don't think I'm the target audience, but I just think it's so funny. And so much of that is the cast and love of Anna Kendrick and so many of these different people. Just fun to see on screen. They found a formula that was just like this absurd idea about battling a cappella groups on college campuses, as if that's a thing, and they sell it with, they're so serious about it while being totally non-serious about anything at all. So just a formula that works for me really well. Then we have Pitch Perfect 3, a movie that does not work for me very well. And we have this one just to complete our collection. I actually technically do own the second one, but I bought it like 2 weeks ago. And in this video, I'm not putting any of the movies that I bought January of this month. These are all my pre-2019 movies are this video right here. Just so you know, random fun fact that you didn't know prior to this video. Now you know. But Pitch Perfect 3, weird concept for a movie. I don't know what they were thinking. Going in an action direction and stuff. Bizarre. Classic sci-fi film. One of the classic twists at the end of a movie. Planet of the Apes, the original one. You know, in certain ways it hasn't aged well, largely because of the makeup. Since it's so prominent on the screen, you notice the aspect of the film that is the most dated. But some of the themes, ideas to it still absolutely work. Then we have Rise of the Planet of the Apes, a movie that when they announced it, I was like, are you kidding me? That's going to be awful. So I didn't see it in the theater, rented it from Redbox or something like that, watched it, and I went, this is fantastic. Went out and bought it the next day, like, wife, you have to watch this movie. It's actually good, it's dramatic, and there's tension, and you like, the lead character is Caesar the ape, and you really care about him. You got to watch this. And yeah, I loved it. And then the second one came out, and I loved it even more. And they like crafted this ape character into this really compelling, nuanced character in this world that was interesting and just so exciting. So I can't wait to see what the director of this movie is going to do with this, the Batman movie that's no longer called The Batman, that he's been working on for 2 years now, but maybe someday it'll actually come out. Point Break. Of the kind of iconic 80s, 90s action movies, this is one on the list that I've never really enjoyed all that much. Now, I don't want to say don't enjoy it. I do enjoy it. I have fun with it, but it's not one that's ever resonated with me the way it's resonated with other people. Like, I really like Speed and other movies with these same actors, but this one was like, every time I watch it, I'm like, something about the way that it's done just doesn't click fully with me. Then we've got the Predator triple feature. The first Predator, I think, is one of the great movies of all time. Just such a great sci-fi action thriller, classic cast. I've said this before, but it's like the one Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that I don't think of as an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. That it finds some way to transcend his persona. The movie itself transcends his persona. And I just think about it as the Predator and I go, oh yeah, Arnold Schwarzenegger's in that. And that's a huge compliment to give it. The second movie, not crazy about it. I keep trying to like that movie and I don't. It's not a movie that works particularly well for me. Then you have Predators, which is also in this triple feature, but you have Predators as well, a movie that I think does work. It's not like a crazy creative sequel to the original film, but it's a nice addition to the mythology. It's like more stuff that's enjoyable inside of that world. And so this to me is the best of the Predator sequels by a lot. Primal Fear, a movie I haven't watched recently enough to say anything about it, but I remember it having a twist at the end and a great performance from some young guy named Edward Norton. So you should check that one out if you're at the video store. I think you should, at least. I don't remember if you should because it's been so long since I watched. Next up, a movie I talked about earlier in this, Prometheus. Yeah, gorgeous film. Absolutely gorgeous looking, amazing special effects. Story, not so much. Characters, not so much. It's a movie I don't really understand the hook of what Ridley Scott was going for. That I don't know if it's because he's a more cerebral guy that likes certain things in his sci-fi, because obviously he did Blade Runner, that just don't resonate with me all that much, the way he does his stuff. But it's a movie that to me just came off pretentious. It was trying to be something that it just wasn't. It wasn't all that interesting. It didn't earn all of the mumbo jumbo inside of it. And so it's a movie that's always left me very disappointed. Movie that has never left me disappointed, Pulp Fiction. Just a great, interesting, unique film that was hugely influential on so many people in the nonlinear storytelling. Even someone like Nolan coming along and famous for nonlinear storytelling. I think a bunch of that goes back to this movie. And just amazing dialogue, characters you remember, and without it needing to be any of the things that I normally talk about in my reviews. All the stuff out with story and structure, it throws all of that out and does this totally new thing with all of it. And it's just fantastic. And then we have this fun Blu-ray that I ordered from Europe, actually, in December. And I'm coming off Creed 2, getting ready for Aquaman. I was having a bit of a Lundgren renaissance or something and wanted to watch the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie, and I knew I was going to rank it, which I did it less than a week ago. So I bought this movie, really cool little Blu-ray. The movie itself, kind of a throwaway, forgettable Marvel adaptation. This Blu-ray, however, it includes the work print of the movie. And it includes these candid interviews with the director and Dolph Lundgren at the gym and stuff like that. So it's actually a very cool Blu-ray for a movie that does not really deserve a very cool Blu-ray. Next up, we've got Punisher Warzone, a movie that I think has a bunch of things that it does really well. The ultra-violence, very cool. At the center of it, the plot line, I think very cool. The mix of the campy tone with Jigsaw, with the ultra-violence, with the kind of the serious plot line about Frank accidentally killing an undercover cop, doesn't really work. So overall, a movie that should have been a lot better than it was. We got The First Purge, real waste of the concept, and a movie that's more frustrating than enjoyable. Second Purge movie, Purge Anarchy. A nice use of the Purge concept. This is my favorite of the Purge movies, and it's an action movie, it's a horror movie, it's got a little bit of commentary, just the right amount to know that they're being kind of smart and thinking about, if there was this thing called the Purge, what would this look like for the different classes and things? That's smart. That's kind of a fun concept. It didn't get pretentious though. It's just like the right mix of all of it. So that's my favorite of the bunch. Then we've got this, I don't know what's on this, but it's all sticky. Like you spilled soda on or something. Quantum of Solace, the follow-up to my favorite of the Bond films, and real dud. Apparently they didn't get time to finish the script before a writer's strike started, and it shows in the movie, and it's got some problems. A lot of it going back to the script. We got Rampage, one of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's many movies that came out last year. I had fun with this one. Some people were very negative on it, or forgettable, but yeah, it's kind of forgettable. It's also a lot of fun. It's a movie that you put on and watching big monsters tear cities to pieces. That's enjoyable. The Rock to watch, very enjoyable. And so, for me, I didn't. If you just take it on its own terms, I think it delivers what it promises. More 4K Blu-rays that I got for Black Friday. First Blood, the original Rambo movie, and easily the best of the Rambo movies. It actually has a real nice drama inside about it, about Vietnam, and I've heard some rumors at one point in time they were talking about remaking it, rebooting it. I just don't know if that's a story that makes sense to tell in the modern era, because there are very specific elements to the political climate that made the Rambo story make sense right after the Vietnam War that I don't think makes sense in the current time period at all. So that struck me as a very odd thing for them to look to do. But this one, if you haven't seen it, you got to check it out. Fortunately, they didn't have the second one, but they did also have the third one when I brought the first bought the first one. Real ridiculous movie, over-the-top action movie, like the peak ego Stallone trying to look gorgeous like an Olympian statue or something like that. And so he's just all roided out, juiced up, jacked, shredded. Movie itself, it's a fun action movie. The tone is a bit weird because suddenly he's making one-liners and cracking jokes and changed his character a little bit. But hey, it's an 80s action movie. Then one in the wrong color case. I need to get a better case for this. I don't like. Obviously, I got it at Blockbuster when a Blockbuster was going out of business, and so it's in a terrible, terrible case. But The Return of Rambo, the most violent of the Rambo movies, with bodies being blown to pieces and things like that. Do you like violent movies? There's one right there. Dark movie, shows some stuff that is like, you forget that it's in there. So when you rewatch, you're like, whoa, this movie gets heavy really fast. So I love it because I love very violent movies. Ready Player One. I loved the book. So this was one of my most anticipated movies of last year. Actually let me down a good bit. I still think it was good. Give it a positive review. Sequences are fantastic inside of it, but they had to dumb down the plot too much, and they streamlined it and took some important things out of the book. And so then it just feels like the dumb Cliff Notes version of a more intricate world that was built. And so some of the stuff I really liked about what made the story that next level interesting is gone, as well as even the Easter eggs, the references to stuff seemed like the more baseline, basic stuff as opposed to the book, which was a little deeper. Then we have Red Sparrow, a movie that was the only movie last year that I turned off because it's very rapey. There's a lot more rape in that movie than I enjoy watching. And so I get why some people would enjoy it. People tell me I need to finish it. If I can get through this one part, then I'll probably enjoy it, but a little bit too rapey for me. Then we have Reign of Fire, the dragon movie with both Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey, and also, I think Gerard Butler's in it as well. It's like one of these movies, Gerard Butler's in it. It's one of these movies that has like this cast of people that's great. It's about dragons. Wow, the dragon movie, Gerard Butler, Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, that's amazing. Movie itself, pretty forgettable. There's a reason that we've forgotten that all those actors were in a dragon movie together. A movie I haven't forgotten, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. This is the definitive Robin Hood for me. It came out when I was like 10 years old or whatever, so a very definitive movie in my formative years of starting to love movies. Some people criticize the coming and going of Kevin Costner's accent or whatever it is. None of that matters to me. This to me is just the definitive version. You got Alan Rickman as the Sheriff of Nottingham. Also, so many things about this one I just absolutely love. Another movie came out right around when I was 10 years old, The Rocketeer. And one of these movies from Joe Johnston as well, a guy that I keep mentioning. I'm not mentioning the director of very many movies, but for some reason, Joe Johnston is getting a lot of and he directed this movie. So if you haven't seen this one, it's a fun little period piece adventure. And, it doesn't have the action pacing of modern films. It's a slower pace to some of it, but once it gets going, real cool little fun adventure, kind of for almost all ages. I've shown it to my kids, and that doesn't say a whole lot because I don't have very good standards, but I have shown it to them, and they're 4 and 6. We got Role Models, another movie I got from Blockbuster, so it's in this gigantic, ugly case that does not go very well alongside actual Blu-ray cases. And as for the movie, I haven't watched it in a long time, so I don't know if I like it or not. Probably should rewatch that one. Next up, we've got Sicario, one of these movies from Denis Villeneuve that just kind of put him on the map as this guy that was able to just craft these tense movies that are kind of freaky in these situations, dark characters. Sequel wasn't quite as good as the original. It doesn't really matter too much to me. But as for this one, a very, very cool little film. Sing, an Illumination film with all the music, pop culture references to make children happy and make me kind of cringe a little bit. I'm not a big Illumination fan, as you've probably picked up on. They're very popular. They've got a lot of entertainment, but they just, to me, it feels like they go for the lowest common denominator, and that's frustrating for me. And that's what this felt like to me. Like, look, cute animals and pop songs, and it works. My kids love it. We got Skyfall 007, another great Daniel Craig Bond film, and the one that came out for like the 50th anniversary, a classic film in the mix. The Social Network. I don't think I have this on Blu-ray. Did a DVD sneak into my collection here? That would be messed up if I accidentally Where does it say? I don't even know how to open this. Have I ever opened this? Where did this come from? Is it a Blu-ray? You guys will find out as I find out. That was close. It is a Blu-ray, so we can talk about it. So I know I had my mom's copy of the DVD for a long time. I had it on my shelves. Apparently, I did find this one because at some point in time I want to do the David Fincher films. So, it is in fact a Blu-ray of the movie about the Facebook. And I need to rewatch that one. I've only actually watched it one time. So one of these days, whenever I do my David Fincher, when does he have a new movie come out? Whenever David Fincher comes out with a new movie, I can rank all of his movies for you guys and rewatch that one. Speed, a movie that I've talked about several times, or Keanu Reeves has made several different appearances in this one. And I mentioned it not too long ago as an example of a movie from Keanu Reeves, an action movie from the 80s and 90s that I thoroughly enjoyed. And fun fact, Joss Whedon did a script doctoring on this one. And so he's actually basically wrote all the dialogue, and that's why it's like all one-liners and quippy stuff. It's very Joss Whedon-y. And so I don't think he's credited as a screenwriter on it, but according to interviews and things like that, they're like, the guy that's credited, he did all of the action. Joss Whedon did all the dialogue, as I believe what's happened. Then we got Split, the M. Night movie related to the movie that came out just this past weekend. Great fun, not great fun movie. Apparently I've been doing this too long and I've got great fun in my brain too much. I would not describe this as fun. A nice return to form for M. Night, who had a terrible run there for a little bit. And then he came back with The Visit, which I'm actually going to watch as soon as I finish shooting this video. I'm actually going to watch The Visit. But so he makes a return with this one. It's a good thriller with an amazing performance and a great final twist. Not a great fun movie, as I almost said. But what is a great fun movie? The first two Spider-Man films in the Spider-Man Raimi trilogy. Bought this nice little set just a month ago. Some nice packaging on this bad mamba jam. But the first two films I think are great. I think the first one's better than the second one. I get a lot of crap for that in my videos. Like, how dare you not have the second one as your number one? I mean, they get angry with me, even though I put disclaimers in before I said all of it. Still, they were not very forgiving towards me. And they don't understand, like, I don't like the plot line about him losing his powers. I think it's a very lazy plot line in the way it's written, but it works for other people, and I'm totally fine with that. So don't hate me for not having that. Third one, not as good as the first two. Then we have Spider-Man Homecoming, another great fun time at the movies, and that's really what it is. Like, it removes some of the heavier stuff that were in the Raimi films, and it just kind of gets back to him as a high schooler, trying to understand what it means to be a high school superhero, wanting to have a girlfriend, wanting to balance all these different things, and acting like a high schooler. So it legitimately is a good fun time at the movies. Okay, we are moving into the final stretch of this video, and if you're still hanging in there with me, Green Apple is the code word to put down below in the comment section to let me know that you are still watching this excessively long video. Next up, we've got Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, the director's cut. This is my favorite of the Star Trek movies. It touches on life, death, purpose, meaning. It's got a great villain in Khan. Does so many things so well, and I don't think any Star Trek movies have topped it since. Then we have this collection of the Star Trek The Next Generation films that one of them's pretty good, three of them are not so good, very flawed films in a lot of different ways. I didn't know I had this. I don't know if I ever did buy this, but someone I used to work with saw me about a month ago and they went, "Hey, here's our borrowed these 4 or 5 years ago. Here you go, you can have them back." And I told her, like, I don't think I bought this ever. She goes, "No, you did. I swear this is yours. Take it back." So I have this now. I don't know if I bought it or if she got me confused with someone else, but there it is. There is Star Trek Into Darkness. It's a movie that I don't really understand as much hate as it gets. I get some of the criticisms why people feel like it doesn't live up to the series, out of canon. I get all that stuff. But some people hate this movie, and I don't fully understand why. And there's lapses in logic, but it's also fun, and it moves real quick. So this is one that's always kind of frustrated me with some of the hate that it gets. Then we have the Star Wars: The Complete Saga, the proper set with this very cool booklet deal for holding all the movies. Mine has been watched many times and handled by my kids many times, and therefore it's pretty beat up on all the edges. But of course, Star Wars is Star Wars, so it's actually, I didn't have this on. I think I bought this whenever they like first announced the Disney merger or something. I was like, I'm in such a Star Wars nostalgia mode. I better go out and buy it, and went out and bought it in that context or something like that. Then we've got Star Wars The Force Awakens. I had a blast when this movie first came out. I still have a blast with this one. Another one, I don't get the backlash. I don't understand where a lot of it's coming from. Like, it's a fair criticism to say that it's derivative of A New Hope. It is. Some of the other criticism, I don't really understand. When people are like, it doesn't make any sense that she was able to beat Kylo Ren in the end. You mean the guy that was just shot in the chest with the deadly weapon? You don't understand why she was able to do well against him? He was dying. Not a surprise that she did well. So I never fully understood the hate on that one. And then as new things come out and people are mad about Last Jedi, I think some of that's feeding into hatred of some of this other stuff as well. Then we've got The Last Jedi. I don't get that. I don't fully understand the full hatred of it. I don't get the full love of it. I'm right in that middle ground of I was disappointed by it and I don't like the direction they went with it. But as for the big overblown emotions from some people, I don't get it. Like, just why can't we have a normal, average take on the movie? That's kind of where I am, where I wish they hadn't gone in those directions. There's some gorgeous stuff in it. There's some plot issues inside of it. It's not the greatest or the worst. And then we've got Solo, another one that I think is kind of right there in the middle as a good enough Star Wars movie. It doesn't have the pretense of this hero's journey in the Empire. No, it's just a fun heist movie. It works for me. I had people that were like, when it came to my best, worst, biggest disappointments, biggest surprises of the year, I had people that wanted me to put this on all 4 of those lists. I had someone that wanted me to put this on my comic book movie list. Like, people are crazy. It's not a comic book movie. It's not based off of a comic book. It's certainly not one of the best movies of the year. It's far from one of the worst movies of the year. Didn't really disappoint me because I expected it to have issues with it. Didn't surprise me because I expected to have some fun with it. It's just a good enough movie that wasn't great. Should have probably been better. But yeah, there it is. Then we have Lego Star Wars The Padawan Menace. I don't think I've really watched it. My son has, though. Step Brothers. Before there was Holmes and Watson or whatever that garbage Sherlock Holmes and Watson movie with these two guys in it came out last month, there was a time when they did amazing things that were very funny. Like this one right here. I think it's a hilarious movie. Then we've got Suicide Squad, the extended cut, in this pretty steelbook packaging right here. Great cast. Some great moments. Horrible script. Horrible. Shockingly bad script. He really had 6 weeks to write it, and then they recut it afterwards, reshot things. Not a good way to make a movie. Superbad, movie I find amusing enough. I've never been on, like, some people are just gaga over this movie. Thought it was like the greatest thing that had ever been released when it came out. Funniest movie. I was never on that train, but whenever I watch it, I was like, this is actually a really funny film. Super 8, the J.J. Abrams throwback to Amblin films like E.T. and all the Explorers, all that fun stuff. I thought it captured, if you haven't seen this one, if you're a Stranger Things fan, this is a must watch. This is like the precursor to Stranger Things. It was like ahead of its time, and where Stranger Things and it seemed to capture some of that 80s nostalgia at the right moment in time where people wanted it, and it hit right. This movie came out several years before that, and it's the same thing of like, there's a creature out there, government stuff. It's all about these little kids acting like little kids. This is like Stranger Things, the movie before there was Stranger Things. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. Then we got The Sword and the Stone. I've never actually seen this, but I've got it on Blu-ray. Then we've got, as a huge Superman fan, this amazing set of Superman Blu-rays of the original Superman the movie. The director's got a Superman the movie. A second director's got a Superman the movie. Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, all the way through Superman Returns. An amazing Blu-ray set right here. I had the DVD version of it. Actually, still have the DVD version of this set. Now I have the Blu-ray version of it. The documentary about the making of the Salkind era Superman films. fantastic. And then, of course, the movies themselves, I'm a huge fan of, as I put out a list where Superman the movie scored very well. Now we've got Taken, one of the great action thrillers of the last 15 years. Then again, there haven't been a lot of great action thrillers of the last 15 years, so it's not exactly a high bar. Super schlock level going on here. It only works because you do have Liam Neeson in that lead role. Corny as can be in the first 20 minutes of the film, but this is a movie that understands the urgency in what drives the momentum of an action film, ticking clock, bad guys that you wanted to see taken out, urgencies throughout the whole thing. And then you have the sequel that forgets all of that. None of the urgency, none of the ticking clock, none of the stuff that made the original one work. It feels small scale, even though the budget was much bigger. Real letdown of a film. Likewise, the third film is also a big letdown of an action movie. It's basically crappy The Fugitive. Take the plot of The Fugitive and make it crappy with really bad direction. The guy that directed the second and third ones, Olivier Megatron, as I call him, is one of the worst action directors of the 21st century. He does the choppy, like unbelievably large number of takes and everything. Hate it. Then we got Teen Titans Go to the Movies. One of the most pleasant surprises of last year, as I'm not crazy about the TV show. It's way too chaotic, hyperactive for me. But I thought this movie's actually pretty clever. It delivers on being, it was funny. The songs are catchy, got stuck in my head. So that one works for me. Terminator 1 and 2 are two of my favorite movies of all time. Just two fantastic films. And then you got the other ones that have come out afterwards. I view Terminator 3, Salvation, Jenny Smith as basically big budget fan fiction. If you view them as that, I think they're watchable enough. They're totally fine. But compared to the first two, they're just fan fiction. There's someone like, hey, what if we told another story? Didn't tell very good stories, but they're pretty entertaining as big blockbuster type things. But yeah, the first two, great. The first one's more of a horror action film. The second one being big sci-fi, one of the great action films of all time if you throw sci-fi action into the mix. Next up, we've got Thor, a movie. I actually rewatched this one last week. I think it's a little bit one of the more dull MCU films. It's got some issues. It's like scenes are great, elements are great. The overall package, I think, is very uneven. And then speaking of some of the not so great MCU films, Thor: The Dark World is one of the worst films, as it is definitely uneven, definitely all over the place when it comes to the plot, the tone, and just nothing about this movie hooks me. Nothing draws me in. So that's a real disappointment. Then we've got Thor: Ragnarok. When it comes to biggest comeback of the MCU, Thor: Ragnarok is certainly one you got to bring to the mix. Total change in tone, characters, type of story, everything about the Thor franchise turned upside down, and they went for like this Flash Gordon campy humor take, and it works. It works. Makes probably the funniest MCU film. Then we've got Tinkerbell, Legend of the Never Beast. Don't know what that is. Certainly one of my daughter's movies. Then we have Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall, a bonkers, ultra-violent, Philip K. Dick, trippy, cerebral, crazy ideas, action sci-fi movie. If you haven't seen this one, finish this video, then go out and watch this one. It's pretty fantastic. Toy Story 1, the original Pixar film, the original full-length and CGI animated film, and still one of the best. Just, they captured these great characters, put them up on screen in a way that changed animation. I mean, it literally fully changed the game. Pixar's become one of the greatest film studios out there. And then they have one of the great sequels of all time that continued the themes, the elements, the characters, the adventure of the first film so well. And then you have the third one that closes it out so nicely. It makes you think they're gonna kill him off. Actually, it brings tears to your eyes. Then they close it out and you brings real tears to your eyes as you're like, oh, this is such a fitting conclusion. And then apparently we're getting a Toy Story 4 this summer. It's Pixar, they've got a great track record, so it'll probably be good, but man, I'm nervous. Why continue it? Why it closed out so well? Of all the things you could, I've praised all your standalone original stories. Why? Has me nervous. Transformers, the original one. Some people were gaga over this movie when it came out. Like, oh, it's so good. They brought the character. I was never that person. I've never been crazy about any of these movies. But I enjoy this one, and certainly of the Michael Bay films, this is the best one where the characters make the most sense, the plot makes the most sense, and it's not just this over-bloated Michael Bay mess of a film. So yeah, it's enjoyable. Second one is certainly where the overblown Michael Bayisms take over, and it's just like, it's a movie where you're watching it, it's like Goofy adventures in his dorm, and then this girl turns into a robot, and then there's a chase, and then Optimus Prime is dead 5 minutes after we're having a Goofy scene in the dorm. I mean, it's just like, it goes 0 to 15 just immediately, and you're like, what just happened here? I mean, pacing, rate, all over, I mean, just all over the place. So yeah, not great filmmaking, and the script apparently was one where they didn't really have a complete script when they started because of one of these writer strikes that I mentioned earlier in regards to Quantum of Solace. So yeah. The Transporter, a solid action movie, kind of the one that made Jason Statham an action star, because he'd done like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch before this, but I don't think he'd done it like a definitive lead action role. This movie came along, totally changed his career, his reputation, what he was known for when this one came out. And yeah, the first one's a fun movie. It's from the guy that wrote Taken. Guy behind Taken is one of the guys behind this one. Michael, what is the full name on there? Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the script for Taken, as well as The Karate Kid, was the brain behind this one. Somehow we got mixed up with Luc Besson, and they did the Transporter movies, the Taken movies. Weird kind of career where you go from The Karate Kid, deep human emotions, fathers, sons, that type of stuff, to schlocky action movies. But hey, whatever. He made a lot of money doing that. Then we've got the first Underworld movie. I've never been crazy about this franchise. It always felt like schlocky. It was knockoff of The Matrix. Like, it was just with the color scheme, the leather jackets, the slow-mo, like poor man's The Matrix except with vampires and lichens. So likewise, the second one, I really didn't care for the second one. It was like the first one with all my faults with it, with a less coherent plot line. Unstoppable, the Chris Pine train movie. I think it's a pretty good little thriller. If you get like the initial concept, you're like, what is it about? A train that's gone wild? That sounds stupid. And then you watch the movie and it's actually like really well crafted and nice thrills. Up, another one of these standalone Pixar movies where they took a story that you're like, what? An old man is the lead character. Why would you do that? And he's in a house being taken away by balloons with a dog. What? Pixar, I think you jumped the shark. You made a bad, nope. Classic Pixar. It's a great film. The first 10 minutes is just some astounding visual storytelling. So Pixar, you did it. We've made it to my last little box of movies. There's one more box that has some TV box sets, but this is my last set of movies in here. First up, we've got Upgrade. Very cool little movie from last year that kind of went under the radar, and it's instantly kind of became a cult hit because the people that did see it can't stop talking about it, including me. If you haven't watched Upgrade, if you like violent action movies, go check it out. Varsity Blues. If you like Friday Night Lights, here's the MTV version of Friday Night Lights. There's a lot of overlap in the plot lines. They've shot both Friday Night Lights as well as Varsity Blues right around where I live. And so, yeah, if you want the dumb version of Friday Night Lights, here it is. Check this one out. I have fun with it. It came out while I was in high school. It's about high school, so it's one of the high school movies of my high school years, so I'm kind of partial to it. Another 4K Ultra HD edition right here. Venom, a movie that I need to rewatch. I wasn't crazy about it in the theater, and I saw it early at a press screening, so I saw it before the public reaction, and so I kind of had my thoughts on it from that, and then a lot of people love it. So I'm interested to see what my take will be now that I've been talking with people about it for 4 or 5 months now. Will my perception of it change? Will I see what they're seeing in it, or will it still be kind of the mess that I saw? Then we've got WALL-E. Back to what I just said about Up, one of these out there ideas of like a robot that can't talk, that doesn't have anyone to talk to anyway, picking up trash. And it's delightful. Another comedy from the Zeros, Wedding Crashers, just such a, one of these comedies that kind of came out of the blue that was just really funny. It wasn't on anybody's radar and made everybody laugh. Whiplash, my absolute favorite movie about competitive drumming. I don't know if there's other movies about competitive drumming, but this is my personal favorite of the genre. Such an interesting like taking a concept that you knew would never take the synopsis of this movie and go, oh, that'll be really good. Oh, I can't wait to see that one. But because it just captures the characters and the tension so well, it's a great, great movie. Wonder Woman. Yeah, the movie that everyone was like, look, the very first girl-led superhero movie. Not quite. There was some before. They just weren't very good. But the one that was great and that also made people go, oh yeah, DCEU, they can make great movies. They can put stuff out that people like. And so then we got this movie and I can't wait for the second one. And it's just a real charming performance from Gal Gadot and her relationship with Chris Pine, all the chemistry there, really cool stuff. Then one of the best animated films from the last 10 years, Wreck-It Ralph. Just a great aesthetic of this video game world, all the little Easter eggs inside of all of it. So just a fun movie. Now we're gonna look at a whole bunch of X-Men movies in a row. First up, the first X-Men movie. This one came out right after I graduated high school, and it starred this guy no one had heard of called Hugh Jackman, who was like a foot too tall to be playing Wolverine, and then turns out he's the greatest showman. Sorry about that. But a nice little kickoff to the modern era of comic book movies. You had kind of the precursor in Blade a couple years before this, and then this is the first like blockbuster one that came out, and then the mega hit was Spider-Man a couple years after this one that made, this one was a big hit, and then Spider-Man made twice as much hit and was like this cultural event. Like I went to go see Spider-Man with my grandma. I don't know why we're talking about Spider-Man right now, because we're talking about X-Men movies, X2, and even better film than the first one. The first one did the world building and the great casting. The second one told a better story and expanded on everything and had some nice little nods to Star Trek to the Wrath of Khan towards the end there. And then, and these are all steelbook, which is, they were like under $10 at Best Buy a few months back. So I started to pick all of them up because I'm going to watch, I think I'm going to review all of them leading up to Dark Phoenix. I'm not quite sure. That might happen. I bought them for that purpose, but who knows what's going to happen. Hopefully I'm going to be full-time on YouTube by the time that happens. That's a fun and exciting to talk about. But Last Stand, not a particularly good movie. Just too many plot lines that are underdeveloped and tone that's kind of all over the place. So a movie that I don't think fully works. Then we've got X-Men Origins Wolverine, a movie that really doesn't work, that I don't know what they were thinking with a lot of this movie. The plot line, the direction that they went, the way the claws look, the occasional like goofy humor inside of it, and of course the horrible Deadpool that does not work at all. Then we have X-Men First Class, a movie that I think really does work. I really like this movie. The world building, the setting of it that has kind of this 60s spy movie to it. Loved all of it. The new cast. A movie for me that just works. Then we have The Wolverine, a movie that every time I watch it, I really enjoy it, but I never want to watch it. It's one of those types of movies that is like, oh yeah, this movie actually is pretty good. And you get Wolverine in Japan and some nice change of pace, smaller scale. But it's a movie at the same time that just doesn't have anything that specifically draws me to it. If I want kind of some great Wolverine action or Wolverine storytelling stuff, I'll go to Logan. If I want some of the other things in it, I'll watch a different movie. So I don't know, I'm not quite sure entirely what that is, but for whatever reason, it doesn't draw me to it. X-Men Days of Future Past, the Rogue Cut. I actually haven't watched the Rogue Cut yet. I don't think I've actually watched my actual version of it. I've seen the movie 3 or 4 times, but always the theatrical cut of the film. So I need to check this one out to see if I like the Rogue Cut a little bit more. But this is kind of like what I said about the Wolverine. I feel like I got a little bit tired of this franchise, and so I really enjoyed First Class. Like I always want to say positive things about it, but the Wolverine, Days of Future Past, they don't draw me in the way that some of the others do. And like people, you know, obviously some people love Days of Future Past. For me, I was always like, oh, that was a pretty cool little movie. But that doesn't, for whatever reason, doesn't work for me. Likewise, continuing down that path of not being drawn in, Apocalypse. Another movie I really need to rewatch. I only watched it the one time in the theater, and it just really underwhelmed me. It just felt like not doing service to the characters, to this big plot line. So many different things about it should have been so much better than they were, which was a real disappointment. Movie that wasn't a disappointment, Logan. Wow, it's one of these movies that you couldn't make it if you didn't have all of these as the background leading up to it with these characters, and they let him make it R. They let him go for it. And with the violence, the language, the darkness, it's a movie about death, and just such a great conclusion to our time with several of those characters. And then the last movie on this list, Zathura, another Jon Favreau film, another one of these directors, for whatever reason, I list off every time it's a Jon Favreau film. It's kind of, it's like a cousin to Jumanji. And it has Kristen Stewart in there showing emotion, which is pretty exciting. Dax Shepard, the guy that some people think that I look like Dax Shepard. You tell me what you think down in the comment section if you made it all the way to the end. Just a fun, it's like Space Jumanji, and it's fun as Space Jumanji. And the true final stretch here, we've got Season 10, and these are totally random. Season 10, the final season of Smallville, a movie or TV show that was like a tease of him being Superman, and it ended with him teasing being Superman. We've got Justified. If you haven't seen Justified, if you like Westerns and kind of some dark comedy, stuff like that, Timothy Olyphant, definitely need to check out Justified. Very cool series. Then this three for, I never knew where in my collection to put this one, but V for Vendetta, Constantine, and Watchmen Director's Cut. So I watched Watchmen a bunch of times, read the graphic novel even more times. Never actually watched Constantine. I need to watch that one of these days. Then we've got V for Vendetta, a movie I'm losing it now that we're towards the end of this video. V for Vendetta, a movie that I need to rewatch that one because I've only seen it once. Then we've got these three repeat copies of movies I've already talked about, so they should not be in here. But here's two movies I forgot to sort before doing this video. A Christmas Story one I watched with my kids just a couple days ago, and I need to figure out where to put that one in here. And then Newsies, it's Christian Bale musical. So if you want to see Christian Bale sing, there it is right here in this movie. I've never fully watched this movie. My wife and sister love it, though, I think, is a true sentiment. We've got Arrow, which season is second season of Arrow. Totally random seasons of this stuff. Season 2 of Arrow, one of the best seasons of Arrow, so a great one with Deathstroke in there. And finally, closing out our video, the first 2 seasons of Person of Interest. I really enjoyed this show. I enjoyed the whole cast, everyone that kind of cast throughout the whole series as them kind of crime fighters in New York with this machine that can tell the future based off something, predict the future. And it's from Christopher Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, who went on to do Westworld. He was the originator of this show. Very clever concept. As you watch it, you can see it's both something from a Nolan as well as something that was made for CBS because it had to be episodic each week. Code word orange if you've made it to the end. Tell me down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this very long, extensive video where I talked about way too much. This one is putting my slogan to the test. I legitimately talked movies way too much in this video. And let's keep talking movies too much in 2019. I'll do another one of these next year in January of 2020, I do believe. Come back next year for that one. Thank you for watching.